Again, it is very important for us to find out and to understand the qualitative and quantitative research. No? As I mentioned earlier, no, the quantitative data is information about quantities and therefore numbers, and qualitative data is descriptive and regards phenomenon which can be observed but no measure such as language. No? So qualitative, when it comes to conceptual, it concerned with understanding human behavior from the informant's perspective. It assumes a dynamic and negotiated reality. For the quantitative, the conceptual concern with discovering facts about social phenomena. It assumes a fixed and measurable reality. No? When it comes to methodological, no, for qualitative, data are collected through participants' observation and interviews. Data are analyzed by themes from descriptions by informants, and data are reported in the language of the informant. For the quantitative, no, methodological, data are collected through measuring things. Data are analyzed through numerical comparisons and statistical inferences. Data are reported through statistical analysis. So, focus muna tayo sa qualitative research, no? Qualitative research is the process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting non-numerical data. Nasabi nga ng ating presenter, qualitative research can be used to understand how an individual subjectively perceives and gives meaning, no, to their social reality. Qualitative data is defined as non-numerical data such as text, video, photographs, or audio recording. And these types of data can be collected using diary accounts or in-depth interviews and analyzed using grounded theory or thematic analysis. So it means to say that kapag tayo po ay qualitative ang ating research, ang related and review related literature and related studies review natin, dapat grounded theory or thematic ang gagamitin natin. Okay? Qualitative research is multi-method in focus, no? Involving an interpretive, naturalistic approach to its subject matter. And this means that qualitative researchers study things in their natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them. So, an interest in qualitative data came about as the result of the dissatisfaction of some psychologists, no, with the scientific study of psychologists such as the behaviorists, no, stated by Carl Rogers and Skinner. Since psychologists study people, the traditional approach to sciences is not seen as an appropriate way of carrying out research since it fails to capture the totality of human experience and the essence of what it is to be human. So, exploring the experiences of participants is known as a phenomenological approach or the tinatawag natin na humanism. No? The aim of qualitative research is to understand the social reality of individuals, groups, in culture as nearly as possible as each participant feel it or live it. No? Thus, people in groups are studied in their natural setting. Research following a qualitative approach is exploratory and seek to explain how and why a particular phenomenon or behavior operates as it does in a particular context. It can be used to generate hypothesis and theory from the data. So, ano nga ba ang methods used to obtain qualitative data? Sabi ko kanina, malaki ang kaibahan ng chapter 3 ng qualitative sa quantitative. Now, methods used to obtain qualitative data. There are different types of qualitative research methods, including diary accounts, in-depth interviews, documents, focus groups, case study research, and ethnography. The result of qualitative methods provide a deep understanding of how people perceive their social realities and, in consequence, how they act within the social world. The researcher has several methods for collecting empirical materials, ranging from the interview to direct observation, to the analysis of artifacts, documents, and cultural records, or to the use of visual materials or personal experience. A good example of a qualitative research method should be an structured interview, which generate qualitative data through the use of open question. Yun yung sinasabi nating open-ended question. Laging ang tanong, how and why. No? And this allows the respondents or the participants of the study to talk in some depth, choosing their own words. And this helps the researcher develop a real sense of person understanding of a situation. Notice that qualitative data could be much more than just words or text. Sabi ko nga kanina, photographs, video, sound recordings, and so on can be considered qualitative data. Now, when it comes to data analysis, no, qualitative research is endlessly creative and interpretive. The researchers does not just leave the field with mountains of empirical data and then easily write up his or her findings. Qualitative interpretations are constructed and various techniques can be used to make sense of data such as content analysis, grounded theory, thematic analysis, or discourse analysis. No? So, let's say, familiarizing myself with data. So, description analysis process, narrative preparation, transcribing data, rereading the data and noting down initial ideas. For generating initial codes, coding interesting features of the data in a systematic fashion across entire data set and collating data relevance to each code. Searching for themes, collating codes into potential themes, gathering all data relevant to each potential theme. For reviewing themes, checking if themes work in relation to the coded extract, checking if themes work in relation to the entire data set, and receiving data to search for additional themes, and generating a thematic map of the analysis. Defining and naming themes, ongoing analysis to refine the specific of each theme and the overall story the analysis tells. Generating clear definitions and names for each theme. Producing the report, selection of vivid, compelling extract example, final analysis of selected extracts, and relating the analysis back to the research question objectives in previous literature review. Okay? So, events can be understood adequately only if they are seen in context. Therefore, a qualitative researchers immerse her or himself in the field in natural surroundings. So the context of inquiry are not contrived, they are natural. Nothing is predefined or taken for granted. Qualitative research wants those who are studied to speak for themselves to provide their perspective in words and other action. Therefore, qualitative research is an interactive process in which the person studied teach the researcher about their lives. The qualitative researcher is an integral part of the data. Without the active participation of the researchers, no data exists. The design of the study evolves during the research and it can be adjusted or changed as it progresses. For the qualitative researcher, there is no single reality. It is subjective and exists only in reference to the observer. Theory is data-driven and emerge as part of the research process evolving from data as they are collected. So, what are the limitations of the qualitative research? So, because of the time and cost involved, qualitative design do not generally draw sample from large-scale data sets. So, the problem of adequate validity and reliability is a major criticism. Totoo naman. kapag kayo po ay qualitative research ang inyong focus, no? Because of the subjective nature of qualitative data in its origin in single context, it is difficult to apply conventional standards of reliability and validity. For example, because of the central role played by the researcher in the generation of data, it is not possible to replicate qualitative studies. Also, context, situations, events, conditions, and interactions cannot be replicated to any extent, nor can generalized be made to a wider context than the one studied with any confidence. So the time required for data collection, analysis, and interpretation are lengthy. So, analysis of qualitative data is difficult and expert knowledge of an area is necessary to try interpret qualitative data, and great care must be taken when doing so. For example, if looking for symptoms of mental illness. Ano naman yung strength niya? Because of close researcher involvement, the researcher gains an insider's view of the field. And this allows the researcher to find issues that are often missed, such as subtleties and complexities, by the scientific, more positivistic inquiries. Qualitative description can play the important role of suggesting possible relationship, causes, effects, and dynamic processes. Qualitative analysis allow for ambiguities, contradictions in the data, which are a reflection of social reality. Qualitative research uses a descriptive narrative style, and this research might be a particular might be of particular benefit to the practitioner, as she or he could turn to qualitative reports in order to examine forms of knowledge that might otherwise be unavailable, thereby gaining new insight. So, how about quantitative research? Majority kasi, no, quantitative research ang ginagawa, no? So, quantitative research involves the process of objectively. Kanina, kapag quali, subjective. Kapag quanti, objectively collecting and analyzing numerical data to describe, predict, and control variables of interest. So, the goals of quantitative research are to test causal relationship between variables, make predictions, and generalize results to wider populations. No? So, qualitative researchers aims to establish general laws of behavior and phenomenon across different setting contexts. Research is used to test a theory and ultimately support or reject it. So, how about the methods used to obtain quantitative data? Again, experiments typically yield quantitative data as they are concerned with measuring things. However, other research methods such as controlled observation and questionnaires can produce both quantitative information. So, for example, a rating scale or closed questions on a questionnaire would generate quantitative data, as this procedure either numerical data or data that can be put into categories like yes, no answers. Experimental methods limit the possible ways in which a research participant can react to and express appropriate social behavior. Findings are therefore likely to be context-bound and simply a reflection of the assumptions which the researcher brings to the investigation. Okay, how about the data analysis in quantitative data? Okay, statistics help us turn quantitative data into useful information to help with decision making. We can use statistics to summarize our data, describing patterns, relationship, and connections. Statistics can be descriptive or inferential. Okay? So descriptive statistics help us to summarize our data, whereas inferential statistics are used to identify statistically significant differences between groups of data, such as intervention and control groups in a randomized control study. Again, quantitative researchers try to control extraneous variables by conducting their studies in the laboratory. So, the research aims for objectivity without bias and is separated from the data. So, the design of the study is determined before it begins. So, for quantitative researcher, reality is objective and exists separately to the researcher and is capable of being seen by anyone. Research is used to test a theory and ultimately support or reject it. Now, what will be the limitations of the quantitative research? Quantitative experiments do not take place in natural settings. In addition, they do not allow participants to explain their choices or the meaning of the questions may have for those participants. As Cor mentioned, no? Poor knowledge of the application of statistical analysis may negatively affect analysis and subsequent interpretation. Variability of data quantity because large sample size are needed for more accurate analysis. No? Mahalaga po 'yon. Small-scale quantitative studies may be less reliable because on the low quantity of data. And this also affects the ability to generalize study findings to wider population. So for the confirmation of bias, the researcher might miss observing phenomena because of focus on theory or hypothesis testing rather than on the theory of hypothesis generation. When it comes to strength, no, when it comes to scientific objectivity, quantitative data can be interpreted with statistical analysis, and since statistics are based on the principle of mathematics, the quantitative approach is viewed as scientifically objective and rational. Okay? Useful for testing and validating already constructed theories. No? For the rapid analysis, sophisticated software removes much of the need for prolonged data analysis, especially with large volumes of data involved. Nandyan si different statistical tools, no? Ano yung ginagamit ko? Okay, basta marami yon. Then replication, no? Qualitative data is based on measured values and can be checked by other because numerical data is less open to ambiguities of interpretation. And hypothesis can also tested because of use of statistical analysis. Na? So I think that's it.